Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Teamwork a Better Way. I'm Christian Napier, and I am joined by my highly in demand and super busy co-host Spencer Horn. Spencer, how you doing?
I am so great. I'm so glad to be with you and our guest today, Christian. Thank you for your patience. Sorry about that.
No, it was awesome because we got a little bit of sneak peek behind the scenes as to what you do, and you were fired up. And I'll tell you what, I am fired up for this episode because we've got an amazing guest joining us from the other side of the pond. Uh, why don't you go ahead and do the honors and introduce him to us?
Yes, so we have today Philipp Schett, who is, really one of the world's leading OKR, which if you don't know what that is, objectives and key results experts, who has built a company called Wave 9, the fastest growing OKR consultancy globally. He's got extensive experience as a director at major telecommunications and strategy consultancy. He's followed roles at Meta and T-Mobile. I have a coaching client at T-Mobile. That is so cool. Philip specializes in the intersection of prioritization, communication, and process improvement, which we're so excited about talking about today. But unlike competitors who merely rewrite goals or sell certifications, Wave 9 focuses on enabling true value of OKRs through implementing robust processes and structures for organizations ranging from 400-person nonprofits to Fortune 10 enterprises with 150,000 plus employees. And so after 250 plus implementations for clients like ABB, Renault Group, Norwegian Cruise Line, went on them for my honeymoon, and various banks, Philip has developed a pragmatic, results-driven approach that really transforms how organizations execute their strategies. Man, does that fire you up or get you excited, Christian?
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. I'm super excited. Let's get going.
Yeah, so welcome today, Philip. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Friday evening, couldn't be better.
Friday evening, and remind us where home is.
Oh, home is a big question these days. But well, I am German right now. I am in Germany, but I moved to the States in 2014. So
Right.
home is a bit of a well, it's a bit of a poorly defined term in my world. But right now, and definitely for the holidays, it's Berlin here in
Are
Germany.
you seeing some Christmas markets with the kids and family?
Yes, exactly. That's what we're doing here. Yeah, just
Wonderful,
yesterday
wonderful.
evening we went to one, and tomorrow we will go to the next one.
Okay, so what's your favorite treat when you go out to the German market? What do you get that you just can't live without when you're home?
So I mean, it's the typical Glühwein, right? That's my favorite drink. So yeah, I think that's just and yesterday I had hot apple juice with cinnamon, and that was lovely too, especially
That's
because
more
it was
American. So
yeah,
the German is the spiced wine. It's kind of warm. Is that right?
yes, exactly. That's something we love over here.
That's great. Well, today let's get to our theme. The theme is the prioritization paradox. Why smart teams make bad strategic choices. So, what inspired you to explore this concept? Of the prioritization paradox.
You know, I had the pleasure of working like all my life in driven teams. And so in teams where people were extremely motivated, extremely smart. You can imagine, right? Team at Meta isn't typically well, it's typically pretty smart. And the same at the consultancy that we worked, and whenever I worked in these teams, I I experienced that the teams that were often like that I would consider the hardest working, the smartest teams, and really the most talented and driven, they were often like super overloaded, and they were very often really they often the challenge is saying no and saying, hey, let's deprioritize something because everything seemed important and everything seemed urgent. And so the trait that got them there, like the trait that makes you a meta employee, that trait that makes you a partner in a consultancy, the trait that makes you successful, suddenly becomes dangerous once you reach territory where you are just where it's just getting too much. And so I saw a lot of team members burning out. I saw a lot of teams just not getting as much done as maybe some other teams, and not getting the results that they were hoping for, because they were often trying too many things at once, and were really poor in prioritizing. And I think that's just something that doesn't need to be this way. And if we're all better in prioritizing, and then maybe saying no to a few things, or not right now, that typically makes for better environments, for happier lives, and for more sustainable careers.
Well, that sounds easier said than done, right? Saying no sounds easier said than done because it's
Mhm.
hard. So I'm really curious, like, what is the framework, that allows people to discern what to say yes to and what to say no to? Because I find sometimes in my own experience that sometimes I say yes to the wrong things or no to the wrong things. So
Mhm.
kind of walk us through that process of being, figuring out how to discern uh, what we should be saying yes to and what we should be saying no to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. If it would be as easy as, you just need to say no more, then this podcast would be done in a minute and a half, and we would wrap this up, and everyone would be happy, right? With less work. But you're right, it's just not that easy in corporate environments. It's not that easy in startup environments either, where there's a lot of pressure on the organization to really deliver. And it's not easy in your it's not often easy in your personal life either. So let's walk through a framework on how you can make better prioritization decisions, and maybe realize yourself, but also communicate to the stakeholders that you have, that you need to prioritize. And so let's begin with what is typically happening. So typically what's happening is that the there are certain goals, and then maybe you have a revenue goal, and maybe you have a new client goal, or maybe you have whatever, you have a new features goal for, maybe if you're in product, and in marketing you might have a new leads goal. You have some type of goal, and then but that is often very much lagging. So it's a very difficult, or it is a goal where you can probably still do a million and two things to move towards that goal. And so let me give you the typical goal that I see in organizations is increase revenue. The very, very typical goal. And unfortunately, there are a million and two things for you to potentially
Definitely a
move.
lagging indicator.
Yeah, way lagging, right? But
Exactly.
still too many leadership teams try and steer a ship with that indicator, right? Oh, revenue is falling. Oh, we need to panic. We need to start new initiatives. Oh, revenue is increasing. Okay, maybe more of what we are doing right now. So it's just a very difficult way of really prioritizing, because you can increase prices, you can serve new customers, you can deliver new products, you can maybe spend more in marketing. All of those things can potentially help to increase revenue, but where do you even start? And then often enough, thinking is much faster than acting. And so at least for most people, definitely for most people I know.
For some
And
people, talking is more fast than thinking.
I might be sometimes in that category too,
I'm in
but
that category, but not Christian.
it's good. At least one of us is thinking before they say something. That's helpful. So when you have that revenue goal, and then you start new initiatives, and now you're suddenly realizing, oh, I have way too many initiatives. Then it's often too late to say no, because oh, suddenly you have invested in all of those initiatives, and now you want to bring them to an end. But then you suddenly realize, oh, it's we are 80% done for most of them. So basically, you go from a lagging indicator to too many initiatives that you all start, and that because it is difficult to reprioritize with these, and then you have so many initiatives that all seem important and that all seem like good ideas. And at the end of the day, that is what makes prioritization so difficult, is you're not choosing. My client always asks me, okay, and then we're gonna, or hope that they're gonna weed out the bad ideas. That's not really happening, because you probably weeded out bad ideas before, but you didn't weed out enough good ideas, or maybe even great ideas, because you can only do 3 or 4 ideas or initiatives a quarter, and then but you have 10 great ideas, and that's often what happens to good teams. So now that's the problem. Now, how do we get to a solution? And the solution, coming from an OKR consultant, that's probably not a super surprise, is a framework like OKRs. So for everyone that is listening and isn't super familiar with the OKRs, super short for objectives that are qualitative statements that tell us what to do. And then those key results, they tell us if we are on the right track. They are measurable, then they are leading indicators most often. So they should be leading indicators. So instead of setting a goal for revenue and then having a million initiatives, you set goals for some key results that you identify. Okay, if we move these key results, we're actually going to change our revenue, and we're actually going to increase our revenue. So instead of a revenue goal, you might have a goal for like increasing the average revenue per user. Still a relatively broad thing, but way better than the one before, because now teams can actually prioritize some of the decisions. Or you're saying, oh no, we're not going to touch our existing customers with a price increase. Price increase, by the way, the revenue increase, like the revenue increase for like everyone who is out of ideas, right? Can work sometimes, but sometimes it can also backfire. So typically, a better idea would probably be, hey, let's find new customers and then increase the average revenue there. But you get it. You probably get the idea of, we're trying to move from overarching and goals that are super bad for prioritization to much more tangible goals, and only then to initiatives, because otherwise, if we will end up with 1,000,002 initiatives.
How often do you see organizations doing that, making that mistake where they make such a broad goal? Because I see it a lot, and I mean, and what's interesting is there's a lot of smart people running. I mean, these are hugely successful companies, yet they keep making the same mistakes.
Yeah, it's almost every company, right? It is almost any organization, and I don't even say that goal is like it's terrible in itself. I mean, I do say that, but even if you have a revenue goal, and even if you can't get away from it because, well, for whatever reasons, then because your shareholders are expecting it, because your board is expecting it, right? Many reasons for it. You just can't stop there. So it's just really important that you break that down into something much more tangible. So even if you have a revenue goal, and look, Wave 9 has one too, right? So it's still, but the only real information that gives to my team is a level of ambition, right? That's really the only value in a revenue goal. And so I am setting it, but then I'm very clear on also the how I
What are
want
the
the
levers?
organization to get
And
there.
let's talk
Exactly.
about that. So can you
Yeah.
break down the core differences between outputs and outcomes?
Yeah. So, and that's a very important question. Now, it's often displayed as binary. Sometimes I feel like sometimes I would say it's more into continuum, right? If it might be an outcome for some and an output for others. But let me clarify it. So an output is typically the deliverable. So you are working on something. You're putting in 50 hours into marketing, and now you have a new website. And now that website is is an output. It's a clear deliverable. If you are in a marketing team, if you're writing a blog post, that's a clear deliverable. That's an output. If you're in HR, a new performance plan is an output. A career development plan for like an employee is an output. Now, what are outcomes? Now, outcomes are like the impact that this output has in the world. And so it's and that outcome is often much more complex than creating an output. That's why people are often a bit afraid of setting outcome goals, because if you're setting output goals, if you say, hey, we want to write 10 blog posts, we want to set we want to create a new website, we want to launch 5 new features. If you're doing that, that's easy. That's you have complete control over that. And it feels like you can actually achieve those. It's in your control. Now, an outcome is much more complex, right? You have to. So if we are moving to an outcome, that's the impact. So your new website, you're not building the website to have a new website. At least that's what most people and most organizations have. The website is serving a purpose, and that purpose is, maybe it is lead generation, maybe it is how many new clients are interacting with you, or it is something like, you're trying to get more people to sign up for your services and get in touch with you. So the website serves a purpose, and that purpose is the outcome, and that's the goal we want to set. And so organizations are typically very good in setting outputs and in defining outputs and brainstorming about outputs, and very good in those super lagging indicators like revenue or profit or goals like this, and very bad in measuring and really setting goals for anything in between. And those are the outcomes.
So one question I've got for you, kind of following on this conversation. So we're hearing this kind of 3-letter acronym, OKR, objectives and key results. Yeah. Many of our viewers and listeners are familiar with another 3-letter acronym, which is the KPI, right? So I'm curious to hear from you, what are the similarities and differences between OKRs and KPIs, and when should they, what purposes do each of these serve, and when should they be used?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's not super easy to answer this question because OKRs are not a super well-defined term, or there is no standardization board for OKRs, and KPIs neither. So KPIs does mean something else for many, many people. I've met organizations where they were very much true to the key performance indicator, and they only had like 5 or 10 KPIs that they were actually, and those even had a goal. But in many organizations, KPIs just means a metric, and they are often tracking thousands of them. But I can tell you the way we use them and the way I would recommend to people to use them, because they both have absolutely their value. And we are even using a third acronym. We call it AIMS. Some of our clients call it MBOs, and others are calling it like long-term OKRs. But let's start with that. It's the long-term goals that an organization has set. And those are, we call them annual impact metrics, AIMS. And those are the revenue goals that you're setting in your organization. And then you have your OKRs. And those OKRs tell you how you are achieving and how you're getting to those aims, those longer term goals. And those, again, your outcomes. And you make them transparent, you set them on shorter intervals, and they help you really make progress towards them. And then KPIs, they measure the health of the business. So like if you're driving in your car and you are maybe monitoring your oil temperature, right? So let's say we plan a road trip from San Francisco to Cincinnati, and we want to to start, and we are setting a goal for, okay, this is the average speed that I want to hit because I want to
You
be
know how long a
fast.
drive that is, do you?
It is a bit of a drive, but I'm sure it's a beautiful drive for much of it.
I mean,
So
that's like Berlin to Mumbai.
we better get going, right?
Right. Yeah,
I don't think
Um,
it's that
you,
far, but yeah, that's a
you,
long ways.
it is a drive, but so we're gonna maybe set a goal for like the average, like our average speed. We might set a goal for the number of pit stops and reduce and keep that low, right? Because I don't want too many breaks. But I'm probably not going to set a goal for the oil temperature. So, but the oil temperature needs to stay at a certain level, because if it gets too hot, then I might need to set a goal to drive it down again, right? If I'm through the Death Valley, and then I'm realizing, oh, my oil temperature is going up, then it's bad. So KPIs are like, they are measuring the health of the business without necessarily needing a goal for it. So, and that's very often your uptime, for example, in many organizations, that's an SLA, and that's really important to track. You have to be, your website has to be up, your product has to be up all the time at 99.99% of the time. But you might not have a goal if that's always the case, right? But if it suddenly gets lower, and you're looking at, say, only 98% of uptime, then you might promote that KPI to a key result. And you're now saying, okay, we need to change that from 98 back to 99.99%. So in short, a KPI measures the health of something and of your business, and a key result is often a KPI on a performance improvement plan, on a PIP.
I really like that. So let's can I go back to this outcome and outputs? You say
Mhm.
the real issue is outcome discipline. What does that mean? And how do you? Why is it so hard to maintain? Why do we have to work on that discipline?
Yeah. Mm, because if so, it's very often difficult for teams to stick to some key results, because they fall back into the old habit of, oh, our lagging indicator is at risk, let's do something with a few initiatives, instead of maybe trusting the process and saying, hey, okay, we didn't have a great first month, maybe January, but we are seeing a lot of positive momentum and new leads coming in. Let's stick to this plan and not throw in another initiative. And that and then, so that's one thing, right? It is very easy to fall back into this trap of like urgency, and look, I have a strong bias towards urgency as well, but I still, and I'm asking all my team all the time to, okay, let me know if I'm coming with too many ideas, and they very often tell me that that is indeed the case, because we haven't really worked on the other ones. So it's really easy to fall back into this trap of doing something because now we feel like, okay, that we need to again do something new. And then it is also harder often to measure, like to lead with these outcomes, because as leading indicators, they should move more often. Like revenue, we are only like very few, like not all organizations measure that daily. Like some do, yeah, some do even hourly for sure, but most are only measuring it really on a weekly or monthly level. So it's much more, yeah, much more lagging in that sense as well. And so now you're introducing all those new metrics that are much more real time. And now you need to actually look at your numbers once a week, or and look at your dashboards once a week, not only the financial ones, but those marketing ones and those sales ones and those in product and HR. And so that is very often very often a new muscle where you have to create a discipline of looking at those once a week and then reacting on them.
Okay, so uh, taking the driving and the dashboard analogy,
Mhm.
and going from San Francisco to Cincinnati, right? If I'm understanding correctly, the KPI is like the dashboard, and it's just kind of monitoring like how fast I'm going, and
How much gas you have in
you
the
know,
tank?
yeah, yeah, tire pressure and
Tire
whatever, right?
pressure is a good
Speedometer
KPI.
and
Mhm.
odometer and all those kind of things. And
Yeah,
the OKR is more like the navigation system, right? Like, okay, I'm 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 I need to get from San Francisco to Cincinnati, and these OKRs are gonna they kind of point me in the direction to make sure that I'm still on track to achieve my goal, right? I'm still on the path. Uh, that may
yeah,
be a wildly imperfect analogy
yeah.
because I'm not an expert in this area. But then, uh, where I think part of the problem comes in organizations is as new things happen, uh, you know, new trends emerge, like AI pops up or whatever. Then people in the organization start to question: do we still want to go to Cincinnati, or do we want to go to New
Cleveland.
Orleans, right, or
Yeah.
Cleveland? Like, and so we get distracted. Like, do we want to change course and head in a different direction? And one of the questions that I have for you, Philip, is uh, as an organization is operating in this ever-changing environment, and we have these OKRs. Uh, how do you assess those the aims, the long-term goals
Mhm.
and the OKRs, and say, yes, we still want to go to Cincinnati, or no, it's time for us to change course and we need to head in a different direction. So and again, I apologize if the analogy is not a great one. I'm just seeing
Yeah.
this in my own experience as well, where organizations are floundering. They're not sure where they want to go, or they choose that, hey, I want to go to Cincinnati, and
Yeah.
then you know events happen and they decide they want to go someplace else, and they end up just driving all over the place and really not ending up anywhere.
Good question.
100%. And so what we recommend is, so it's, let's look at the two opposite extremes of the spectrum. So at one case you would maybe say, okay, you should just stick to your goals and be like, stick to them for years, right? Set them for 5 years and stick to them, and you will end up somewhere nice, right? That would be one extreme. And the other extreme is, as soon as something changes in your environment, you should absolutely change your goals. And so the one isn't working, clearly, because it is absurd, right? We would not follow goals for 5 years blindly, right? That, okay, there in the former eastern side of Germany, that was actually the 5-year plan. Didn't work out for them, right? That's not something we want to do. But changing our plans and goals, like our underwear, that is not a great idea either, because it would be chaos. So those are the two extremes. And now the truth is, as often, somewhere in the middle. Now, in the past, many organizations have set goals for a year, but in the environment we are in, that is that's very often too long. And so that's why OKRs, we're setting them for a quarter. And a quarter, now you can deviate a bit from that. Some organizations in, like, the defense industry, which is going through with like the very slow cycles, right? They have decided to go with 4 months trimesters, works well for them. And then others, the startups we're working with, they sometimes even go for 6-week sprints, right? You have a quarter and then you divide it into 2 6-week sprints. And for them, it's working well as well. So it's your mileage might vary. You stick to the analogy, but we would recommend set goals for a quarter and then make it an intentional exercise to say, yes, these are still correct, or we change them. Don't be like the frog in the water, which who says, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna jump out when it becomes too hard." Right? That rarely happens. You want to really make it an intentional decision to stay on course or to change course, and we have found that doing that every 12 to 13 weeks most works best in most environments.
Really bringing more of an agile mindset into goal setting and directions. I like that. Philip, can you share a story of maybe you can keep the name quiet, but or not share that, but of a team that shifted from heavy output thinking to outcome driven execution. Just maybe share a real life example, and change the names to protect the innocent, but and what changed?
Yeah, 100%. So we the one thing. So it's actually near you. Won't name the organization, but it's a hospital group in Ohio, and they are so great hospital group and then big hospital group, and they are operating yeah, well, hospitals. So they have been very much just monitoring strategic initiatives, and before we started, they had 61 of those strategic initiatives, and I love that example because now, and they had some very typical
Okay,
leading
61. That's crazy. Sorry.
61
I
strategic initiatives, right? So very much like the typical big organization that has all that strategic portfolio management and then 61 traffic light symbols on PowerPoints, right? And expensive consultants running around the hallways and saying, "Oh, where are we with this project? And is this project still amber or is it red? And how can we make it green?" And so for 61 initiatives, and many of them running for years and being very expensive and being very costly. And so, and then we set OKRs with them, and we identified, okay, we need to move to really deliver better healthcare, be more profitable, to really do all these things. We need to narrow down our focus for into a few strategic areas, and they deprioritized afterwards 40 something. Like we only had 20 projects left, 20 strategic initiatives. We created a few new ones, killed 40, and at the end we had 22 or 23. I don't remember the exact number, but we had a really much smaller set of initiatives that was much easier to manage. And many people that were bottlenecks before, because they were on 5 or 10 different strategic initiatives, they had to produce deliverables for them, they had to were subject matter experts. It freed up a ton of resources, and so they paused these strategic initiatives and then got back to some of them later, but then realized that many of them were just following an outdated strategy. They were implemented many years ago, and you know that. I mean, you can imagine that, right? If an organization starts something, very many are very bad in stopping something, and so in stopping an initiative and not letting it finish because there's emotional attachment, because then suddenly you would say, "Oh, we burned all that money." So that really requires a lot of a lot of, let's say, a lot of it requires you to be really brave. And so, but you need to do that, and that was a good example. Earlier this week or last week, I was in Denmark with another client, and that client is going through a huge transformation right now, and that transformation makes them, so they were an incumbent in Denmark with a very long history, 70% market share in their niche software company, and they are now internationalizing, which means many things at once. It means a transition from like being an incumbent to being a challenger. Completely different mindset, right? Completely different performance necessity too, right? It's hard. Then they're moving from like legacy tech to software as a service, and they are moving from being just in one market to multiple markets. And also here, we all of those are very important for them. They were just acquired by private equity, so very important transitions for them. But now they are changing from, oh, we have a ton of strategic initiatives to, okay, we have a few leading indicators that actually are much better goals, and therefore are cutting down on those initiatives. And one good example there is they're using it to really deprioritize some things that they have done for a very long time. A custom event, for example, is something that they have done for a very long time. I'm not going to do it in Q1 because they have bigger fish to fry. But the marketing team, until I was there last week, was freaking out about this event and how important it is. But and that they've done it every year. But again, they are deprioritizing some things that just can't be a priority right now.
I don't know if you, Christian, if you felt the weight difference from 61 initiatives, strategic initiatives, to the 20. All of a sudden, the energy increases, the, as you call it, the focus increases, and your ability to actually make shifts happen instead of diffusing all of our energy, diffusing all of our mind power and our effort. I mean, because that's really what we're talking about here, the prioritization paradox, right? And these are smart people. These are, they're running hospitals, they're running major organizations, and they make bad strategic choices. Some of it, you said, comes down to inertia, right? Just how this is carrying things forward, and obviously the investment of time and energy it's hard to let go of, and that's where the courage comes in. But I just feel the difference when we narrow our focus. It's not an excuse to let your foot off the gas. It's actually creating more
Yeah.
mind space to bring more of your talents to fewer challenges, and that that's how lasers cut through steel, right?
Yes. And you're making a great point, because I'm not a proponent of like the 4-day work week or 4-hour work week. I'm not a proponent
Yeah, we're
of
not saying we're
of
going to let their foot off the gas now that we have
not
20
at
initiatives.
all.
That's a third of the initiatives. Well, people are going to be lazy. No.
No. You're just getting some stuff done, actually. Yeah.
Right.
Well, okay, I've got another question. You're talking about how having so many different things on your plate, initiatives, whatnot, reduces your agility and how you want to be more agile. Uh, Another thing that can reduce agility is a lot of bureaucracy in an organization, right? You got a lot of red tape. Um,
Yeah.
I heard this quote the other day. I don't know who the original, and so I'm just paraphrasing it. I don't remember who said it originally. It said that policy is the scar tissue of organizations. Because we have these failures and we create policy, and that keeps us from being more agile. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, um, how the work that you have done with organizations has allowed them to be more agile, not just in kind of, getting a laser focus, but also, looking at convoluted policies and procedures and processes and say, hey, you know, do we really need to be doing all this stuff? Can we can we be more flexible in our approach? I mean, what do you have to say about um, uh, kind of simplifying the way that organizations do things, so that they
Yeah.
can focus more on the things that really matter the most?
And it's a great point, and something that I had to learn the hard way too. when we introduced these processes and these goals in the like 10 years ago when we really started, I I wasn't in the US for a very long time, and so I was still looking at the world with a very German lens. And you might have heard about German over-engineering. So I was creating processes in organizations that were very much bureaucratic overkill. So and so that's the thing with any tool, or not any tool, but definitely most tools that I know, they can become double-edged swords, right? So this can be used to cut down bureaucracy, and it can be used to cut down red tape, but it can also at the same time be completely overused and be the red tape and become the bureaucracy. And so I really want to highlight that this is something, yeah, to be aware of. And before you get excited, right, you can definitely overdose on OKRs, and you can definitely overdose on goals. And so you want to be careful there as well.
Sounds
So
like you're admitting to a little bit of addictive personality, because I'm right there with you. It may not be what's that wine called, but German chocolate is definitely one of my issues.
yeah. Yes, yes. And so yeah, it's important to use the tool in the right way. And that means you can't go from, oh, we had 160 initiatives and now we have 160 metrics, right? So that wouldn't, and we want to achieve a change in all of those 160 key results. That would be insanity. And so you really need to make sure that you're using it wisely and say, okay, we are using 3 to 4 objectives per team, and then maybe 2 or 3 key results. And really, the less is more. Like, less is definitely more. So you would really want to cut it down to as few key results as possible, and then drive change towards those. And then you have the OKR process itself as well, right? You can make that very bureaucratic, meaning you can say, okay, we're going to set leadership OKRs in the beginning, then we're going to set the next level team, and then those need to be approved, and those need to be read out by everyone. And then every team is setting OKRs, and they are going to be approved, and then we're going to give long feedback. Or you just make that a more natural process that probably still starts at the leadership team, but then prioritizes velocity before perfectionism and before getting everything correct, right? So you can even the OKR process itself, you can make it very bureaucratic, or you can make it much more leaner and much more agile. And so 10 years ago, I was definitely very much on the strong bureaucracy side, and nowadays I'm a lot more relaxed and a lot more optimizing for velocity and optimizing for progress instead of process. Now, also, again, caveat is that if you become too, let's say, too less fair and too lax on the process, right, then you are suddenly in a situation where you might not see any, like, you might have too many exceptions again, and then the process isn't delivering the results you're hoping for either. So yeah,
Sorry, I didn't have the chance to warn you that might happen because
that's fine.
finish your thought. I'm so sorry.
No. I mean, in 10 seconds, you can use OKRs to kill bureaucracy, or you can use OKRs to create bureaucracy. Got to be careful there, and less is more.
So I think this is maybe, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a follow on to what Christian just asked, but how can leaders create the psychological safety necessary around not doing more, but doing what matters? I mean, this is a little bit of a dance that you've been talking about, right? I mean, how do you We want them to not do more, but we want them to focus on really what matters. So that's the shift. It's not about
Mhm.
taking our foot off the gas, but that's a tough balance. How do leaders create that environment where it's okay now?
Yeah, and it's so we call it a culture of no. And so that at the beginning sounds almost ridiculous and maybe not something we really want, right? Why would we want a culture of no? But if you think about it, you want the culture where people say no to, yeah, to more initiatives or initiatives that they don't have the capacity for, and would just say yes because they don't feel secure. And then if people are saying yes to initiatives that they shouldn't have said yes to, you're just ending up with either low quality or long wait times. And it's the old saying, you can't really have good, cheap, and fast at the same time, right? And so that's also true in your organization. And even if people say yes to everything, that doesn't mean that they are actually, well, in a position to do all of those things. So yeah, you want a culture of no. Now, at the same time, you don't want the culture of no to be overused, right? So you still want high performance culture of no. And high performance culture of no means you have people that are saying yes to everything that they can realistically deliver, but not more. And you don't have people that are just using this as an excuse to do the 4 hour work week, right? That's still something you have to be hard against and accept no when it's the right thing to do, but don't accept it when it's a lazy excuse.
I love that. There's actually a way to say no without saying no, and I love the story. Christian, I've shared this before. Stephen Covey, his top lieutenant, Stephen Covey gave a strategic initiative, and he couldn't take it, right? But instead of saying no, he said, "Stephen, I would love to do that. Here are all my current priorities. Which one of these priorities do you want me to
Yeah,
deprioritize while I take on this new one?" So it's a way of saying no without saying no, right? For those of
100%.
you who are
Yeah.
listening who may struggle with that, I want to do this, I just can't unless we take something else off my plate. So let's look at that and see what we need to do.
100%.
All right, my last question, and then I'll hand it over to Spencer uh, to kind of ask his concluding question or questions, if he wants. Um, is where does Wave 9 the name come from?
Okay, I love the question. So, you know, I'm a kite surfer. I moved to California because I wanted to be close to the ocean. So Wave was kind of a logical name for this, and I also wanted the company to be a wave, right? To be a wave for this change that we are bringing. And then the nine is interesting. So the nine has different meanings. So first, there are 9 hours of time difference between Berlin and San Francisco, and these 9 hours have dominated my life for a very long time. When I was in Berlin or in Germany, I was often working late hours because I was still working with San Francisco. If I was in San Francisco, I was waking up very early to still catch my colleagues in Germany. So the 9 hours of time difference. It's also 9,000 kilometers, which is random, but I take it. And then the nine is, well, it's the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new one. So the end of an OKR cycle and the beginning of a new one, and I like that as well.
Christian, you know what it's like doing all those time shifts, don't you? All over the world, you've done them.
Yep, all too familiar, for sure.
Hey, I want to mention something to our listeners that we haven't done in a while. We have a sponsor in Team Diagnostic, Team Coaching International, and I would love to invite our listeners, if you want to do a team diagnostic, to scan this QR code. If you're watching, if you're listening, you're going to have to Well, I don't know. You're gonna have to email me, but we would really love to have you take a look at your, what's going right with your team, and this can actually really measure what we're looking at today. I mean, what's the productivity like on the team, and what are the conditions on the team that enable you to sustain that productivity, which is really what we've been talking about today. If you smart people are overtaxed and taking on too much and not saying no, these are real issues that cause people to burn out, to shut down, to leave the company that maybe they even love because they just can't deal with it anymore. I'm sure you've seen a lot of that in your day, Philip, right? And we want to make sure that we keep people engaged and performing at their very best. Well, I have a lightning round of questions for you. Okay, so these are just one really super fast responses. Could be one word or one sentence. Okay, outputs or outcomes. What's easier to measure?
Outputs.
One word that describes great leadership.
Authenticity.
First thing you do if a team brought you 20 top priorities.
Ask why.
Biggest myth around OKRs.
That 70% is success.
Slack or email?
Or Slack, for sure.
Book every strategy leader should read.
The OKR Blueprint, coming out early next year by Philipp Schett.
Most underrated leadership skill.
Vulnerability.
Easy for you to say. Work smarter or work harder?
Sorry, but I gotta say both. I mean, you have to really work hard. I do believe that it's not possible to only work smarter, but you also have to work smart.
Yeah, great, good answer. Your leadership style in one word.
Adaptive.
Okay, excellent. And what does teamwork mean to you in one sentence?
In German, the acronym means, oh, great, another one does it. But no, for me, it is the essence. It's the essence of life. It is how we make things happen as humanity. It is how we make fun. It is how we create value. It is how we sometimes also have our disagreements and create energy. It's teamwork is everything.
All right. Well, we're going to look forward to the book coming out early next year, Philip. That's super exciting. And we're so grateful for you taking an hour out of your evening, a Friday evening, all the way
Oh,
over there
man.
in Germany to speak with us. That was a great conversation, super educational, informative, and I've got like a million questions. We could go on for hours. And if people want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about how Wave 9 could potentially help them improve their organization, what's the best way for people to reach out?
Yeah, easy. We have a website, wave9.com, and then please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm there as Philipp Schett.
All right, fantastic. And we'll put links to everything in the show notes for folks who catch this later. And Spencer, you've been helping organizations develop high-performing teams for a long time. And we've known each other for 20 years, and you were doing this even before we met. If people want to connect with you, how do they do that?
Same. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the place. And if you look for Philip, that's one L and two P's at the end. And so,
That's right. Gotta
Christian,
get the spelling right.
Christian, I mean, so many people look to you for great questions and great insights in their organizations. They've, Philip, he's been consulting with major organizations IOC, International Olympic Committee, World Games, FIFA, World Cup, all around the world. These major games organizations and more. He's consulting, at a government level on technology, digital transformations, and AI integrations. How can people get a hold of you, Christian?
LinkedIn as well. Just look for Christian Napier on LinkedIn, and I'm super happy to connect with anyone. And listeners and viewers, we're grateful to you for joining us on this journey. Early next year will be 6 years, right, Spencer, right, that we've been doing this podcast. Philip, thank you so much for being with us the week before the Christmas holiday. We're so grateful to you, listeners and viewers as well. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. We'll catch you again soon.